Right, I've taken the key start and throttle unit off the handles, and this is what you get underneath. This cable here, that's just the brake cable for the engine brake. Now you have to pull it on to start the engine and then let it off when you want the engine to stop. The throttle lever, I can't do it one-handed, it does move freely, but the throttle cable and the clutch cable, actually that's just part of the throttle cable, and the clutch cable that's broken off, so those two have got to be replaced. And the key start, although it's rusty, it does turn, and all it does is, say again, all that will clean up. I'll try it out first to make sure it works. If it doesn't work, I'll have to replace it, but as I just have water ingress in it. Once it contacts are clean and a bit of lubricant sort of in the tumblers on there, then that should work fine. If it's only got to make the contact to make the starter motor turn over. So I'll give them a clean up. So there's not much to them really. The cables, the throttle cable attaches in there and just goes in that little hole there, and the brake cable with the engine brake just attaches in there and then just attaches normally the other end like most Briggs engines do. Right, I took the key out and used a pair of pliers to wiggle it out in the first place. I soaked all the tumblers in WD-40 overnight, just put it in a vice. I actually took it out of the plastic cover, put it in a vice all night, let it soak. As you can see, it twists and springs back how it should. I've cleaned the terminals up a bit, put a electric meter on them, a voltmeter with continuity, and when you turn it, it makes contact. When you move it back, it doesn't, or when it moves back itself, it doesn't. So the switch itself will work fine to start the engine. Say only just where it's been sitting outside the mower, I suppose it got wet. So a bit of WD-40 and it sorted the problem out. So that saves whatever a new ignition key would cost. I think on eBay they're about, the key in the whole unit is about 20 odd quid, I think. So with a want of a squirt of WD-40 and a bit of time, it sorted the problem. This is the belt and drive mechanism back together. This bracket here, the plastic cover that goes over the top, bolts onto it. This is like a U shape, it goes right down the bottom there and acts as a guide for the belt. It's sort of dished on the bottom, and so that bolts on the bolts that fix onto the drive shaft. It's simple, straightforward to put on, nice and easy to change the belt if you need to. And I've remade the battery. This is where the battery sits on. Remade that. That had rotted out. Originally it was riveted onto the deck. I'll just put a couple of 6mm bolts through it now. Something else I'm going to replace. This is the original fuel pipe, but I've got some braided stuff. Got this off eBay. Rubber hose with a braid over the top of it. That was about £2.50 for a metre of it, I think. Really good value. I figured, having done all the rest of the work on the engine, I don't want the fuel pipe leaking because it's gone really rigid and hard. So for the cost of a few pence, it's worth replacing the line. Right, there's the new fuel hose fitted on. I don't know if you can see, right at the back, just underneath the fuel tank, there's a screw hole there. That's one of the screw holes, it's probably too dark to see, that holds the fuel tank on. And then the other three, 1, 2, 3, I've had to take the covers off again, so I had to change the coil, as I said in an earlier video. So I'm just putting the covers back on. But so you've got those 3 bolts, and you've got the one at the back under the tank, and then there are only 2 like self-tapping screws that go there and there that hold the top cover on. So as you can see, it's starting to look the part again now. One thing I'm a bit pissed off about, I managed to scratch the deck the other day when I was working on it, so luckily I've got a bit of paint left. I'll have to rub that down slightly and spray that patch in. But in general, it's not looking too bad. Obviously I've still got the handles, so I've got to finish painting the handles, and then I've just got to source the last couple of cables that I need. Got to put the blade back on, still got to sharpen that. But otherwise, it's getting there. There's a primer bulb for this particular carb on here, and the cover will have to come off, 2 screws, just to put the accelerator cable on it. Alright, that's with the cover back mounted on. You've got the engine brake up here, obviously the cable goes in there, and you've got the cut off switch where the wire from the coil goes to that switch, so that when you pull the cable on, it makes the circuit open and the engine will spark, and then when you let the cable off, that makes contact and then it cuts the engine out. I say the mower's not looking too bad. It looks a lot better than it was when it came in. Oh, something else, right, the handles on this particular model mount here, and some of the newer models, they mount on top rather than coming down into the deck. Now, although there wasn't an engine plate on this particular Hayter, because all the paint had come off and the label had come off with it, the part number on the engine says it's a 1995 engine, so I'm assuming 95, 96 is the model year. There are a lot of different model types of the Hayter Harrier, lots of different part numbers, lots of different parts. Some only vary slightly, but it's worth making sure, if you can, that you've got the right part number, or the part looks right for when you're ordering spare parts.